Hey all, Scott here. It's amazing to me that the Nintendo Switch is already 3 years old and they still haven't fixed the console's biggest issue. The T is backwards. The Nintendo Switch is only 17 years away from being 1 year away from legally being able to drink. So this is a thing now, I guess, the Nintendo Switch aging. We're already 3 years into the system's lifespan and I've cataloged my experiences with it annually this entire time. I see no reason to stop and also not complain about something, so it looks like we're going to be taking a look back at the Nintendo Switch from March 2019 to February 2020 and see just how whiny I can get. Of course, this is Nintendo talk. I have to reiterate that while I'll try to mention most of the major things that happened this year, I'm mainly going to be focusing on my experiences. Believe me, that's best for everybody. If I had to give every single game the same amount of attention, we would have 5 straight minutes of me trying to figure out what each of these words mean. Remember March 2019? The month Yoshi's Crafted World came out? Yoshi's Crafted World was Nintendo's first big release of the year if you don't count New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe in January, but A, it was a 7-year-old game, and B, it was New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, so Crafted World it is. Crafted World was the first big 2019 game, and it came out at the very end of March. Nintendo, my god. Yeah, the first half of the year was pretty bleak in terms of big new releases on Switch, and honestly, Crafted World didn't make things that much better. It's not a bad game, not at all, but I keep forgetting it ever came out. This game is a follow-up to Yoshi's Woolly World on Wii U, and that game was phenomenal. Nothing groundbreaking, it was pretty much another Yoshi's Island game, but it was such a lovable, comfortable experience, and I'd consider it to be the best Yoshi game since the original Yoshi's Island on Super Nintendo. Crafted World is done by the same developers as Woolly World, good feel. It does the same real-world materials art style shtick as Woolly World. It's still a Yoshi's Island style game at heart, but it tries to be something new and different compared to past games in the series, and for that, I commend it. Instead of being a straight-up 2D platformer, levels are designed with a 3D perspective in mind, and not only do you go left and right, but towards and away from the screen. You gotta keep the foreground and background in mind when traversing a level because you might just have to knock something out with an egg or two. I gotta say, it's the most original and unique Yoshi game in a long while. But because of that, it is so much less refined than Woolly World. Woolly World was basically just another Yoshi's Island game. That may have meant it wasn't anything special in the gameplay department, but hey, at least it was really fun. Crafted World honestly gets kind of boring after a bit. The fact you have to scour the entire environment and sort of not really 3D is novel, but gets a bit tiresome after a while. It doesn't help that the game wants you to play through its levels multiple times to collect everything. One of the game's major gimmicks is that you can play the levels backwards with everything turned away from the camera. The original reveal trailer at E3 2017 made this seem like an integral part of the game. Get ready for this, it's not. Just when you beat a stage, you get the option to go through it again backwards to try and find some Poochie pups. That's it. I don't know about anybody else, but when they advertised this feature, I assumed they were going to have like way more clever things to do with the stages flipped around. It feels like they thought they would come up with interesting uses for this mechanic eventually. They didn't, but still acted like it's a selling point. I guess it's cute to see like, oh, there was a butterfly moving around, and on the flip side, you discover a Shy Guy was controlling it or something. Great, cool, $60 well spent. Now, the art style is absolutely beautiful with this game. I think it's better than Woolly World. However, am I the one who has problems with how Yoshi looks and moves in this game? Something about his animations look unfinished, especially the eggs. Just look at how they move, look at how they pop out of this box. And his model still looks weird to me. It's literally just a regular Yoshi model with a faint fuzzy texture. Like, why not make this an origami Yoshi to fit with the arts and crafts vibe? It would probably fit better if they put the yarn Yoshi from Woolly World in the game, but no. Slightly carpet Yoshi. The music's not too great in this game, which is surprising coming from the excellent soundtrack of Woolly World. It's not even a lot of bad music, they only put like a dozen or so songs in the game, and they range from nothing special to what the hell was going on here. Okay, bottom line, Crafted World overall, it's okay, it's fine. It's a decent game, I just wasn't blown away by it and didn't have the desire to beat it. I played like 4 to 5 hours of it too and still don't care to finish it off. To wrap up my thoughts, can't wait for a remake, Yoshi's Crafted World HD. Alright, what else released in March? Captain Toad Treasure Tracker DLC, why? Why did they make new levels for an 8-month-old port of a 5-year-old Wii U game? At that point, just make a sequel to Captain Toad. I heard nobody talk about the Captain Toad special episode, and at the same time, I don't know anybody who bought it. These levels should have been in the Nintendo Switch version from the start. While we did finally get Final Fantasy VII, I still love the idea that the game that notoriously never came to a Nintendo platform came to a Nintendo platform. For what it's worth, I played it for a bit, and there is a reason why Not an RPG Guy is up in front of my resume, but I'm really happy it's here, and it did come with some quality of life improvements that sped up the game a bit. The Nintendo 64 Classic with a question mark made its way onto the eShop this month. Turok! I believe this is the first Nintendo 64 game officially made available on the Switch, and it's in HD, has better controls. It's still a shooter from the mid-90s. I don't think it's gonna win over any new fans, but it's still great to see legacy content like this get a bit of an upgrade. In terms of news, I mean, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 was announced by Sega. The Switch has been validated. While I'm not the biggest fan of the Mario and Sonic titles, I was pretty happy to see a new one come over. Just having that feeling of all these past mainstay series being available on the platform is a good feeling. Speaking of which, Konami finally did something for once and announced some collections. Their arcade games, Castlevania, and Contra, and Nintendo themselves let out one lone tweet one night in March. It's good to have hobbies. Yes, the Nintendo Switch was getting the ability to play virtual reality content in the form of the fourth Nintendo Labo kit, the VR kit. The Switch is simultaneously the best platform for VR and also the worst. Like, come on, with this form factor, VR is a shoo-in, but also this screen is just not good enough for VR. You might as well just stick your head in front of the TV and turn off the lights. Many people had their doubts and questioned if the Nintendo Switch would be a capable enough VR device. My response was that it was never and will never be thought of that. Labo VR is a toy to mess around with, not a legitimate platform for VR games. Nintendo hosted another Nindy showcase that revealed it's about time. Cuphead was announced after numerous rumors of Microsoft being more open to bringing their titles to other platforms, specifically the Switch. This game always felt like it'd be more at home on Nintendo than Xbox. Yeah, this game based on 1930s animation, exclusive to the same platform Forza's on, same audience. That same presentation ended with the announcement of Cadence of Hyrule, a crossover between Crypt of the Necrodancer and The Legend of Zelda. Sure. That is absolutely insane to me that Nintendo was willing to let an indie developer tackle the Zelda franchise. Even if it's a non-canon spin-off, even if it's just a crossover on the eShop, whatever. That was so crazy to see and really exciting. March was also the month more rumors started to pop up about new revisions of the Switch releasing in 2019, one for more high-end users and another that was focused on handheld play while also being smaller and cheaper. Yeah? Fucking right. April was definitely better than March. I mean, anything is automatically better when it has Donkey Kong 3 in it. Nintendo's big releases of the month were the Nintendo Labo VR kit and Box Boy and Box Girl. See, I would have bought a VR kit at launch, but these things were sold out across pretty much all stores. The kit had a different pricing structure compared to other Labo sets. $40 would get you just the VR goggles and the Blaster Toy-Con to create. You could buy the extra VR Toy-Con separately, or just buy the full-blown VR kit for $80 with all the VR Toy-Con a Scott could ask for. I mean, I saw the $40 sets a few places, and I could have bought the extra one separately, but I'm no pussy. I wanted the full Nintendo Labo VR kit. Now, why did they release the kit this way? Well, one, Labo didn't do nearly as well as Nintendo expected. I still see various kits on clearance. That's how I got the vehicle kit. The stores can't move them, so offering one at a cheaper price definitely helps. But two, they wanted to make the VR goggles cheaply available without all the extra mouths to feed, because some games were updated to take advantage of Labo VR, specifically Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey. Did you know that's all it takes to get people interested in Labo again? Yes, updates for two of the Switch's best games offering VR modes to play around in. Mario Odyssey's is just a simple 10-minute romp. It's a fixed camera and you just collect instruments. It's like I'm really there. Breath of the Wild, though, they let you play through the entire game in VR. Nintendo, you are disgusting! Zelda opens things up for more headaches in my opinion. The fact that you're basically playing the game as you normally would, this time feeling self-conscious, the camera doesn't change all too much. It's basically just playing Breath of the Wild normally, but a bit more immersive and a bit more stomach trauma. But let's talk Labo VR itself. You put it together like any self-respecting Labo kid, and actually popping the goggles on? It's not great, but it works better than you'd expect it to. I think it's pretty low resolution, and the fact that it doesn't come with a head strap and you have to hold it up to your eyes the entire time, yeah, not great. But in context of the Labo VR kit games, it works pretty well. It's obvious Nintendo wasn't serious about VR. They would have put more than just a 10-minute minigame in Mario Odyssey, or they would put better implementation in Breath of the Wild if that wasn't the case. But as a cute little novelty you can mess around with on your Switch, it's not bad. But f*** Labo VR, Box Boy and Box Girl released this month, finally. Finally. Box Boy and Box Girl is a continuation of the Box Boy series on 3DS, you know? The series that ended. You can't call a game Bye Bye Box Boy and then throw out Box Boy and Box Girl like nothing happened. These are perfectly serviceable puzzle platformers made by the Kirby developers. I understand the lack of art style is this game's art style, but I wish there was a bit more going on here. Like, I feel like Box Boy's gameplay mechanics, where you make more boxes to solve puzzles and traverse the stage, aren't clever or interesting enough to warrant such a boring look. Don't get me wrong, it's a fun game, but I don't think it's clever enough to warrant everything being just white. Like, there's some color in there or something. You could afford some nice blues. Either up the art style or up the gameplay, because as it stands, I like Box Boy and Box Girl, but it is really hard to find the motivation to keep playing sometimes. Plus, my god, playing this on a big TV just feels off. This is definitely the kind of game that feels better in handheld mode. Again, I did like the game, but I think it either needs to be more clever or more interesting to look at. I can find so many more puzzle platformers that are more interesting visually and mechanically than Box Boy, but Box Boy gets more attention because it's made by the Kirby devs. Well, at least third-party wise, April was pretty packed. I think the one most were interested in, at the very least seeing, was Mortal Kombat 11. Like, they barely showed the Switch version running up until its release. I think a lot of people were pretty concerned it would be a botched port, but no. It turned out pretty okay. I mean, it looks ass ugly in some cases, but it runs well and it's still Mortal Kombat 11. I also found it pretty commendable it released on the same day as the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC versions. So many other third-party multiplats on Switch get delayed, like Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered. We'll get to this one. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy. Alright, I'm very happy to have these games on Switch. I love Phoenix Wright, but I would have loved this release even more if they put the other games from the series in here. I feel like all they do is constantly just release the first three. Also, I don't care for how the HD artwork looks. This stuff was drawn with the intentions that it would be pixelated on the original Game Boy Advance and DS. When you take that pixelization away, it all looks a little off to me. But no worries, it's still Phoenix Wright, and having these games on a TV on a current console is really nice. Hellblade made its way over, and just how good it looks and performs is astonishing. This is running on a Switch, quite well in fact. This was a weird pick for the platform though. Hellblade is a really good experience. As a video game, it's not really my favorite. So having this game that's so good at being this immersive experience on the Switch, I don't know, it's a weird choice, but it's whatever. Darksiders Were Mastered came over. Finally, one of the last Wii U games ever released, a sequel to one of the first Wii U games ever released, is on Switch. It's about time. More Final Fantasy ports, 10, 10-2, 12 the Zodiac Age. It's weird to me how Square Enix decided to release so many Final Fantasy games within like 3 months of each other. These are long games, give people a chance to actually play them. Cuphead was one of the bigger third-party releases, and it is pretty much a one-to-one port with the Xbox One version. Having this on Switch feels almost too perfect. I've always loved how this game looked, and while I do wish the gameplay and art style worked off of each other a bit more, it's still a great fit for the system, and I'm so happy it's here. Now, Smash Bros. Ultimate received an update this month. Finally, we got our first paid DLC character, Joker from Persona 5. He looks real fucking weird next to Mario. Stage Builder was added as well, and while it's not perfect or nearly as in-depth as I'd want it to be, it has enough going on here to make it interesting to browse what other people are making. But everybody still had one thing on their mind. We know next to nothing about Super Mario Maker 2. Nintendo, for God's sake, just give us more information. They announced the release date this month. That's not what I meant, but I'll take it. May was a fairly steady month. There was definitely enough to play, albeit with no true star of the show. Team Sonic Racing was probably the most prolific release because it was a brand new game, and I always have Team Sonic Racing money in my wallet, but I just can't bring myself to buy it. Just every time I looked at this game, I would say, this looks quality and I'm sure I'll have fun with it, but there's nothing really pushing me to take the plunge. I know, I'll willingly buy Troll and I, but Team Sonic Racing is where I draw the line. It's just, to me, it always felt like the past Sonic Racing games, but with less to it. The gimmick of team racing didn't really appeal to me, and I just don't really feel all too much desire to play this one at the moment. Now, Puyo Puyo Champions for $10, you know I had to pick it up. I'm no barbarian. I was always intrigued by this one because in Japan, it was called Puyo Puyo Esports. I had to buy it for that title alone. Ever since Puyo Puyo Tetris, I've become more interested in the Puyo Puyo series. I gotta say, it's a really fun puzzler. The problem with Puyo Puyo Champions, though, is it's basically a stripped-down Puyo Puyo Tetris, so this is pretty much worthless to me. But here we have the talk of the month for Switch owners, the Resident Evil games. Sure, Revelations and Revelations 2 hit the system back in late 2017, but these are the originals, the classics, and they were sold for $30 a piece. Oh my god. All these games were $20 each on other platforms, but for some reason Capcom decided to charge $10 more on Switch. Did they add anything to them? Did they look better? Run better? By me asking these questions, you already know the answer. Capcom just barfed the PS4 versions of these games on Switch and charged more for them. Would have killed for motion aiming with RE4. I played the Wii version and that's how I like to play the game. The RE4 has kind of clunky controls, but that's not a complaint. It makes the experience so much more tense and the controls don't fight against you because everything is designed with them in mind. But my god, pointing where you wanted to shoot was a dream on Wii, and it stinks it's not here on Switch, especially when motion controls were in the Revelations games, and this is priced higher than usual. I feel like Capcom priced the games this way because they knew some people would buy them for $30, but for those who refused, they constantly put it on sale for $20. So either way, they're making good money off of this. Doesn't make me happy, but at least somebody's smiling. They also released Resident Evil 1 and 0 at retail for $60. And 1 isn't even on the cartridge, you have to download it. You know what I could really use right now after Capcom released overpriced old games of theirs? Capcom announcing an overpriced old game of theirs. Now you want to talk lame ports, here's Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered. Alright, let's be fair, half lame. Out of all the Assassin's Creed games to port to Switch first, gotta be honest, this was an interesting pick. I'm not the most into the Assassin's Creed games, but I do know 3 isn't generally the highest regarded. I would have expected 4 or the Ezio trilogy to come over before 3, but 3 it was, and it has consistent pop-in and frame rate problems. This game released on the Wii U. Why is it having problems here? Also, why did they delay the Switch version by 2 months? The game's 7 years old! Plus, it's not remastered, it's the same as the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 versions. Now, at the very least, they did implement motion controls in HD Rumble, which is nice, and from the hour and a half I played, it was tolerable. Just find it weird how this game, of all games, has this many little issues. Far from unplayable, it's fine, but like, come on. I was pretty happy to see Saints Row the Third come over. It similarly had performance issues, but if you've played Saints Row before, you know performance issues are its specialty. It is the perfect Grand Theft Auto substitute when you don't have Grand Theft Auto. And the Castlevania Anniversary Collection. So first off, Konami revealed the first couple games in this collection a month back. The original Castlevania, Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge on the Game Boy, Castlevania 3, and Super Castlevania 4. The fact they omitted the original Castlevania The Adventure on Game Boy and Castlevania 2 on NES, to me, said they were only going to focus on the best of the best from the classic era of the franchise. These two are either bad or controversial titles in the series, so I was interested to see what games they would round out the collection with. They later announced those two. They did reveal Bloodlines and Kid Dracula, which were great inclusions, but why did they wait to reveal these? Anyways, this is a fantastic collection. It doesn't go over as much of the series as I wish it would, but hopefully we'll get a volume 2 that includes even more. News-wise, well, the Labo VR support didn't stop at just Odyssey and Zelda. Finally, they added it to Smash. See, I knew something was missing from this game. This is basically just a quick little distraction. You get to sit up close and view the battles happening right in your face. It's neat for 5 minutes, moving on. The Pokemon Company announced the Detective Pikachu story from the 3DS game would be finished on Switch. Does that mean a sequel? An expanded port of the original? Tetris 99 DLC? What the f***? Obviously, the Mario Maker 2 Direct was the highlight of May for me. They went over so many amazing things here. There's so many new items and options, a story mode, online multiplayer, get out of here! Of course, this Direct came with some questions. Where are the mystery mushroom costumes from the original? Those were really cool. You could effectively put all these different characters in the game, even if they were just simple costumes. Can I play with friends online instead of just strangers? Will there be new content added later down the line? Well, the game was coming out in just a month, so we didn't have long to wait, but I had a good feeling about this game. Where do I begin? Quite a bit happened in June, but we'll get to all that after I give this thing what for. Super Mario Maker 2 is a great game. You should absolutely buy it because there's limitless value here. But for like every 2 amazing things Mario Maker 2 added upon the original, there was like one thing they f***ed up that took away a lot of that oomph. In the end, it's a game where I can say this is really good, but it's missing a lot of the magic from the original. So Mario Maker 2, you can make your own Mario levels. It's a dream come true. Again, but they added a ton of items, features, a new game style, and making the levels themselves isn't as enjoyable as it was on Wii U. That level builder felt tailor-made for the Wii U gamepad, but when you translate it over to Switch, it feels oddly clunky and cramped. There's this new layout for all the items you can place, and I just do not like this. In the original, everything was laid out in a grid. Sure, it was a bit unorganized, but you got a good look at everything you could possibly put in your stage. Here you have to go through different pages, and not having everything in front of you makes it harder to find inspiration on what to put in your level, and honestly makes it feel like there are less possibilities now. That's emphasized by the fact that now when you click on an object that can be made bigger or have wings added to them, it just tells you pretty much everything you can do with that object right then and there. In the original game, you'd have to shake them or literally add a mushroom or wings to alter it, and by doing that, it felt like there was so much more mystery and discovery involved. While there were less options in the original, there was this sense of wonder where it really felt like there were infinite possibilities. Here it just tells you everything you can do, yay woo fun. Couple that with the fact that making levels on the TV is miserable. Having to use a cursor with the analog stick, why isn't there a gyro pointer like in Captain Toad, or the ability to connect another switch to your docked one to create levels just like in the Wii U game, or even the ability to connect a mouse to use the cursor. Handheld mode creation is far better, but like I said, it feels claustrophobic. Using your fat stupid finger to place objects blocks so much more of the screen than the Wii U stylus, and even getting a stylus that works with the Switch still feels off to me. Creating stages is still leagues better than many other level makers out there, but I'd be lying if I said I preferred it to how it worked on Wii U. Now, Mario Maker 2 has a pretty beefy single-player campaign with levels made by Nintendo. Gotta say, these are some top-quality stages. Lots of fun to play through, though I will say I feel like they didn't go far enough with the concept of this being a story mode. You have to rebuild Princess Peach's castle. Excellent setup right there, but all you really do is go up to Toad, click a level, play it, and repeat. Sure, you do some minor exploration in the overworld, but I would have liked more of this. Because as it stands, story mode is basically the same thing as Mario Maker 1's single-player campaign, the 10 Mario Challenge, where you just go through Nintendo-made levels and that's about it. I'm fine with that, but I wish they went a little farther with the overworld concept. It was really cool to see. Now, playing levels online, that's why you buy Mario Maker, and I'd say since the Mario Maker 2 level creator is more cumbersome than the originals, it seems like only the people who really want to make levels are making them, because it's surprising how many good levels I've played. I haven't noticed nearly as much garbage as with the Wii U version. Multiplayer was added, which is a fantastic addition in concept, but it's so gimped in so many ways. Originally, you would have to download levels to your system in order to play with friends locally. Get in the corner. That is a total buzzkill. It just makes multiplayer so much more cumbersome and makes you wait around in menus far longer than you have to. Now, through an update, you can thankfully now just play multiplayer levels straight from the Course World level browser, but even then, I wish I could just play a string of levels with friends. There's the Endless Mario Challenge, which is fundamentally a playlist of random levels to play, but it's a one-player only mode, just like the single player. Why can't I play these with friends? Well, at least there's online multiplayer. That's right, the first Mario platformer with online play. Ever since New Super Mario Bros. Wii, I've wanted this, and it's fucking dreadful. So at launch, Mario Maker 2 wouldn't let you play with friends online, only randos. Yeah, that makes sense. Nintendo's reasoning for this was because playing with friends could help you sort of cheat at the online leaderboards. Alright, Nintendo. First off, I find it odd that Mario Maker was the first time you decided to add online multiplayer to 2D Mario. Look, they put out New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe earlier this year, okay? With that, Nintendo knows every single level playable in that game. There's no surprises. They know how each and every stage is designed and runs, but they decide to add online multiplayer to the game with stages they have no f***ing idea how they're designed, and there's more room for bullshit. And because of that, and other people's connection problems, yeah, and with this, why does online rankings matter? Sure, I like that leaderboards are here, but even the greatest 2D Mario player of all time, they'd probably be in last place on the leaderboards because online multiplayer gives you random stages that could be unbeatable. They might not be designed for multiplayer, or you just get terrible lag. Leaderboards don't mean shit in this game because the online multiplayer runs so poorly and is the farthest thing from skill-based. If they added it here, why isn't online multiplayer in regular 2D Mario games? Everything Nintendo did for Mario Maker 2's online multiplayer makes less and less sense to me the more I think. It's a great game, I like it, but I have loads of problems with it. At least online multiplayer with friends was added later, and that works fairly well, but I won't forgive them for removing the mystery mushroom costumes though. That was a huge block. Well, at least E3 happened alongside a Pokemon Direct going more in depth on Pokemon Sword and Shield. June will be forever known as the time in which everybody shat piss. More details on Sword and Shield came out, which honestly did not paint it in the best light. The game looked passable graphically, but far from what a potential original HD Pokemon game could look like, and in addition to that, the game would not include the national dex. Now, as somebody who doesn't play Pokemon, if you came up to me and asked, what are your thoughts on the lack of the national dex in Pokemon Sword and Shield? I'd just go, well, this doesn't affect me. You wouldn't be able to transfer every Pokemon ever into the game. They had to cut certain ones because they were focusing more so on creating new models and animations for the Pokemon already in the game. See, that's an understandable reason. But have you seen how this game looks? The Pokemon look identical to previous titles on the 3DS, and the game itself doesn't look all too great graphically. It looks okay, but that's really the best I can say about it. I don't know, my stance is voice your opinions, but don't be a jerk. And that goes both ways. Don't be a jerk to people who thought this game doesn't look great. Sometimes the people saying, stop complaining about this Nintendo game, are being far more ridiculous than the people complaining. Well, when E3 officially kicked off, at least Nintendo's showing was good. E3 2019 just sort of happened, and most companies didn't have that many great games on display, especially for Switch. Ooh, Bethesda's porting over an iPhone game to the console? Good for them, but if the audience is reacting like this to Elder Scrolls Blades, how do you think sex makes them feel? The Nintendo Direct at E3 2019 started off strong, middle was Contra Rogue Core, and ended with a bang. We got the hero from Dragon Quest as the next Smash Bros. DLC character, and Nintendo made damn sure we knew Dragon Quest XI was coming out as well. I wonder if these two are related. Luigi's Mansion 3 looked far better than how it did when it was initially revealed back in September. There was so much more detail, lighting was way better, it was looking like a true HD Luigi's Mansion game. The Link's Awakening remake got a new trailer, with this one showcasing some kind of new dungeon maker. My god, what else could they add to this game? Oh, we'll talk about this. We finally got a look at Animal Crossing for Switch, New Horizons, and it looked beautiful. Everything Animal Crossing should be on the platform and then some. Slight delay, it was supposed to come out in 2019. I reacted accordingly, but we're all good. The Witcher 3 was coming over, which is a pure indication the past 3 years have been a fever dream. How will that work? And at last, Collection of Mana was localized. That was awesome. It's been a Japan exclusive ever since early on in the Switch's life, and it included the third game in the Mana series, which never officially left Japan, and this was the first time we could play it. And it was made available during the Direct and got a physical release later. That was great. Plus, that third game was announced to be getting a full-blown remake. Resident Evil 5 and 6 were announced for the system in a trailer that advertised Resident Evil 1. Contra Rogue Corps, that looked bad, but the Contra Anniversary Collection released that exact day, and it had the same level of quality as the Castlevania one. It was some good stuff. Panzer Dragoon remake, some Dark Crystal game. I don't know, who the f cares? Because at the end, we got this massive sizzle reel of all this stuff coming out. The Spyro Reignited trilogy, Ni no Kuni, Alien Isolation, Banjo-Kazooie is the third DLC character in Smash Bros. Ultimate. That's right, f you, Daemon X Machina! And then we ended things off with a teaser for a Breath of the Wild sequel. No big deal. I've been drained. I don't know if it was apparent with the 100 plus Wii U games I own, but I like Nintendo, and this Direct made me happy. Wasn't perfect, I mean, what the hell was this trailer? Who remembers this? Why was this featured? Some spotlights in there didn't make a ton of sense, but it was a solid showing all around. Later that week, Cadence of Hyrule officially released. Now, I haven't played this one nearly as much as I'd want to, but this is a really cool game. It has excellent remixes of Zelda music, and the core gameplay being an adventure game where you have to move and attack to the rhythm is really interesting. It does make me want to try out the original Crypt of the Necrodancer, but this one has Zelda stuff in it. It's a bit more interesting to me. Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled came out day and date with the other consoles, and it's a solid racing game. I mean, I'm more of a, if it's not Mario Kart, it scares me kind of guy, but CTR is beautiful. It has good mechanics. It's just not replacing Mario Kart anytime soon for me. Devil May Cry released, the first one, the one that was a part of the Devil May Cry HD collection on other consoles. That one, the one that I can always find for under $20, but this is just the first one for $20. At least it wasn't $30 like the Resident Evils. This is pretty much Capcom's strategy on Switch, stripping out games from a collection and forcing you to buy them individually for an overall higher price. At least Devil May Cry is finally available on a Nintendo platform. It's crazy this was the first time that's ever happened. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, the crowdfunded spiritual successor to the Castlevania series, came out about a week after other platforms, and the Switch version was the worst version by far. It just didn't run well, didn't look great. The game itself is pretty good, but playing it on here was less than ideal, which blows because it was the best-selling version. Thankfully, various updates have come out, but for some reason the developer didn't initially realize that a good chunk of Castlevania's audience was on the Switch and wanted to play this game portably. Way to read the room. Classic July of 2019, home to such games as, yup, a video game. Fire Emblem Three Houses, the first Fire Emblem game on a home console since the Wii. This was a big moment for Fire Emblem fans, and from what I could tell, it was an excellent game. And I will emphasize, from what I could tell. Fire Emblem has just never really appealed to me personally. It's not a bad franchise, far from it, but to any Fire Emblem fans who get on me for not caring about the series, I'll start caring when you start caring about Wii Party, thank you. A week before Three Houses released, another Nintendo published title finally came out, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 The Black Order. I also didn't play this one. Just never really appealed to me, and while I thought the game looked kinda bad prior to launch, it apparently turned out pretty alright. I know many miss these types of games, just shut your brain off and have a good time in the Marvel Universe. But this was always just a weird series for Nintendo to revive though, like of all dead franchises to resurrect and make a Nintendo Switch exclusive. This. I mean sure, it did well enough, Marvel's big now, and the game itself turned out to be alright, just, of all series, why this one? Well, a week before Ultimate Alliance 3, another Nintendo-published game released, Dragon Quest Builders 2. Can you take a guess if I played it or not? I actually bought the original Dragon Quest Builders last year, but I still haven't played it, so I just can't possibly play this one. Now, what game did I play this month? Doom. From 1993. Randomly on July 26, which was also the day Bethesda released Wolfenstein Youngblood, the company decided to release Doom 1, 2, and 3 on the eShop. 1 and 2 were only $5, 3 was 10. Capcom's pricing hurts even more now. I only played Doom 1, and it honestly holds up remarkably well. Even though it looks like it would feel outdated, it's not a chore to play through like other older shooters. I think it's probably because 1, Doom's pretty well designed overall, and 2, it doesn't feel too similar to modern shooters, and because of that, you never really get this feeling of, oh, I wish this was tightened up a bit, or, oh, shooters today are so much better, like you would get with a shooter on the N64, for example. But all of your life accomplishments crumble when you start asking people to make a Bethesda account. Yeah, this was a bit of a controversy. These games initially required players to sign in online to play. You'd only have to log in online once, didn't make it any less stupid. However, to everybody screaming about forcing you to have an internet connection, and what if you weren't connected to the internet? You have to have an internet connection to download the game in the first place. I felt like that argument was a little dumb, but forcing an account, yeah, that's even more dumb. Thankfully, that got removed in later updates, but that little controversy didn't compare to what Nintendo was experiencing this month. The Joy-Con are great stupid fucking controllers. They get the job done, but are far from my favorite things to use. They're a bit too small, I don't like how clicky the buttons are, and for some, if not most people, the analog sticks start to whack out after a while and make unwanted inputs in games. This was coined Joy-Con drift, and while I personally haven't experienced it yet, I'm prepared to. This blew up big time, and lawsuits were threatened, and Nintendo ended up quietly offering Joy-Con repair services, but only in specific regions, unfortunately. See, this was perfect timing for Nintendo to have this all happen because they ended up just revealing new Switches. See, that's an easy way to fix your Joy-Con problems, just buy a new console. The Nintendo Switch Lite, often referred to as the Switch Mini beforehand, was the first ever new addition to the Nintendo Switch lineup of systems. It's smaller and more compact, the controls are a core part of the system, you can't remove them, so if the sticks f**k out, your entire system needs repaired. Great announcement during the drift fiasco. It actually has a D-pad instead of gumdrops, and it couldn't connect to a TV. Ever. Can't even buy a dock for it or anything. For $100 less than the regular Switch, that's a pretty big omission. Most people I know who wanted a Switch think to themselves, well, that $200 price point is more attractive, but I'd rather wait and save up an extra $100 so I just get the definitive console. Well, if you had that mentality, great! Nintendo made a new regular Switch too! So like a week after the Lite was announced, Nintendo also announced that the regular Switch would be getting a new revision, and nothing would change except for the battery life. Holy shit. That would release in August, while the Switch Lite was ready to release in September, and while we waited, Nintendo hosted a live stream featuring Smash Bros. Director Masahiro Sakurai showcasing the second DLC fighter, Hero. So Hero is definitely one of the less interesting DLC fighters, simply because in my opinion, a Dragon Quest character was kind of an inevitability in Smash Bros. The series is very at home on Nintendo platforms, and it is the original JRPG franchise, so comparative to Joker and Banjo, Hero's inclusion was never really this huge pipe dream for fans. But this is a pretty fun character. He has a whole lot of bullshit. I'm a big supporter of bullshit. Like Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz HD being announced. Why? Why this game? Why remake this game? They could have done 1 and 2, the games people actually like. This one's just alright. Nobody goes, oh man, you've never played Banana Blitz? You've gotta try Banana Blitz. It's just okay. The Outer Worlds was announced to be coming to Switch. If you asked me to name 20 PS4 and Xbox One games I would predict to become Switch titles, this would never come up. I was not expecting this, but that was an awesome announcement. It may not have been coming at the same time as the other consoles, however, just it coming in general was pretty crazy. Captain Toad got a VR update, just make a new game! I mean, I'm cool with this. This is kind of cute and VR fits Captain Toad very well. It just blows my mind they keep updating this Wii U game from 2014 instead of actually trying to make a new damn Captain Toad game. A Disney Tsum Tsum Switch was announced too. I'm sure somebody wanted a Switch when it came out, but said, I'll wait for the Tsum Tsum one. As usual, August was a bit lighter in terms of pure content, but it did end with Astral Chain, a Platinum Games title published by Nintendo. After hearing such a good word of mouth, I decided to pick it up, and I mean, it's good, but I just don't think I'm a huge Platinum Games fan. I have tremendous respect for their work, but most of their games that I try, they just don't really click with me. I don't know. Again, this is a good game, I can tell. It just wasn't really for me. I guess maybe I need to try it some more. However, a Dragon Quest XI demo came out, and I decided to finally succumb to how Nintendo wouldn't shut the f up about Dragon Quest XI, and I gave it a try. And as somebody who doesn't like RPGs, this is a great game. I love its style, it's so jovial and nice and just an overall enjoyable time. I'm just not willing to put 100 hours into this thing. So yes, this is also a good game, but I'd rather play 10-hour long games instead of Dragon Quest XI that entire time. Turok 2 came out in similar style to the original earlier this year, except the multiplayer was missing, which is what a lot of Turok 2 fans liked about the game. Interesting tactic. Well, the Nintendo Switch revision came out this month, and only a stupid dumb stupid idiot would buy one when they already have a perfectly fine Switch from launch. Yeah, I got the new Switch. Pretty much is the exact same thing as the older model, except this time it has acceptable battery life and a red box. You can't forget the red box. It is so nice to not worry about charging this thing nearly as much as the old one. While I wouldn't say it's completely worth the headache of upgrading and transferring everything over, I'm pretty happy I did. However, after doing the system transfer, my playtimes for most games got reset, which really blows. Come on, I didn't play Kirby Star Allies for that long. An Indie World presentation happened this month. Weird they got rid of the name Indies. Kinda like that. But the big announcement here was that Ori and the Blind Forest was coming over, published by Xbox Game Studios. A little weird considering this indie when Xbox Game Studios is publishing it, but whatever. This alongside Cuphead were rumored quite a bit this year, and while Microsoft said they didn't have much more Nintendo Switch support to announce, I find it hard to believe it wouldn't adhere. But forget Xbox games on Switch, because Nintendo tweeted this render of Mario eating a watermelon and had the word sunshine in it. What the f does that mean? Nothing. But an Overwatch Nintendo Switch case appeared on Amazon. What the f does that mean? What do you think? September definitely had more games than usual. What do you think, I have 20 fingers? I can't play all this. I at the very least tried multiple games out, but my main focus this month was The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. This is an amazing game with absolutely gorgeous visuals that should 100% not cost $60. So Link's Awakening is a remake of the original Game Boy title. It's a beloved entry in the series, no doubt, but it definitely was held back by the hardware it was on. The graphics make it hard to go back to now. You kinda have to guess what certain sprites are supposed to represent. Traversing the map can be a pain with how the screen transitions work and how tiny the screen size is in general. It can be hard to remember where certain areas are and how to get to places, and the overall lack of buttons on the original Game Boy made swapping between items a nightmare. For some reason, Link's Awakening wasn't designed with button limitations in mind, so the player had to constantly go into the menu to swap out items to solve puzzles and progress. But the world of Link's Awakening, the dungeons, the story, the overall gameplay is so good that it really did deserve a remake. It's hard to go back to playing games like this in 2019, even disregarding all the hardware limitations that plagued it. These more complex Game Boy titles just make you wish you were playing this exact game, but presented in a more appealing light. And Link's Awakening on Switch does exactly that. It takes the original game and spruces it up in a way that's more approachable in the current day without really changing it all too much. Sure, its presentation got a massive overhaul and certain things have been tweaked for the better, but by and large, this is the same game. See, that shows how well Link's Awakening was originally designed. Its fatal flaw was pretty much just the fact it was on the Game Boy. They didn't have to do too much to make it good, because it was already really good. It just needed to exist on anything but its original platform. But see, that's where my problems come in with the game. The fact that they really didn't add anything of note. This is pretty much Link's Awakening again, and because of that, I feel like charging full price is a bit much. They added the chamber dungeons, that dungeon arranger mode revealed at E3, but really, this edition is a fairly worthless one. You just take different rooms from dungeons you've completed and make your own custom dungeon where all these rooms have to connect. It's alright, it's kinda cute the first time around, but it's just not that engaging. It's not like Mario Maker where you can truly make your own thing. This is literally just putting random rooms you've already played together. Some people have complained about not being able to share your custom dungeons online, and to that I say, what would the point of that be? You can't do much with this, it's just random dungeon rooms. If there were more possibilities and you could add items and customize layouts, for sure they should have added the ability to share online. But as it stands, I feel like sharing your dungeons online would only reiterate how lackluster this mode is, how it's literally just a dungeon shuffled up with none of your own personal creativity attached. I just wish they would have taken this idea farther or would have put more time into adding things, maybe an extra dungeon or something, but nope. And while we're on the topic of gripes I had with this game, and I'm fine with Link being locked to 8-directional movement, but they couldn't have animated some in-between frames so he doesn't immediately jut from direction to direction. Just animate him moving between directions for like a frame or two. Also, yes, they made Link's shield, sword, and Pegasus boots a core part of his moveset in the remake. You no longer have to equip them like in the original, but why couldn't they have made Rock's feather a permanent part of his moveset as well? I used that throughout the entire adventure, more so than the Pegasus boots, and why does it have to stop and tell me when I get a piece of power or a guardian acorn? 10 hours in, I know what these do! And for a remake of a Game Boy game, I think it's a bit ridiculous how much Link's Awakening's frame rate dips. It's far from that big of an issue and never impacted my enjoyment of the game, but I just think it's a little weird how a top-down Zelda game has this much of a problem running, you know? Don't take this the wrong way, I love this game. Its world was so much fun to explore, the puzzles were great, the story was so good even with it being so simplistic and non-intrusive. This is a phenomenal game and a necessary remake. I just would have liked it if they went a bit further and added more to it. Well, a week before Link's Awakening, Nintendo finally released Daemon X Machina, and somebody probably cared. This game was just not talked about, which is unfortunate because I can tell it was at the very least a quality product. Definitely didn't help that the Japanese publisher and developer Marvelous kept copyright claiming videos of the game online, so even if you wanted to talk about the game, you barely could. So that ended up making a game barely anybody was interested in, a game pretty much nobody was interested in. I'm sorry I'm so brash about this, but ever since this game was revealed at E3 2018, you know, the game Nintendo cold opened with and made everybody confused, it's just consistently been a game that looked alright but never left an impact, and a year and a half later that is my exact opinion of the game. See, I was this close to picking this game up alongside some others like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, just stuff I never got around to buying. I grabbed them at Best Buy, and I just couldn't stomach bringing them up to the register. So the demo it is! It's graphically okay, but the color palette, while stylistic and cool looking, ends up making everything kind of look samey. The city looks pretty similar to these mountains. After playing a bit, I will say this game has a lot of potential mechanically. I found its ideas to be a lot of fun, but the story I couldn't care less, and the overall missions at the start weren't anything to write home about. Don't take my word to heart though, I only played the demo, and it's free for everybody, so if it looks interesting to you, by all means try it out. I will say it was much better than I thought it would be, though I don't really have much interest in playing any more of it. For as many people online I saw saying this game looked interesting but never played a second of it, I will say that Daemon X Machina will go down in history as the game that most people said, it doesn't look bad, but Nintendo's just showing it off poorly. We need to see more about it. When in reality, they meant, I don't give a piss about this game, I don't know why and don't want to put energy into figuring out why, but don't want to piss off the 12 people who are interested in this game. I'm sorry. Dragon Quest XI's Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. Jesus Christ, did you really need both the S and Definitive Edition? Released a week after Link's Awakening. Nintendo, what the hell was up with the schedule? I bought it to support the game. While I got my fill from the demo, I wanted to support the series because I did like what I played and I want to support quality games I have at least some interest in on the Switch. I will say that while this is a good game, I was pretty happy with it releasing so then Nintendo would shut the hell up about it. Literally, they talked about this game in every Nintendo Direct this year and I kept saying, this is an old game! Alongside 11S, Square Enix put out Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 on the same day. Why? These are RPGs, they take forever to beat. Why not spread the release dates out, or at the very least put 1, 2, and 3 out on a different day than 11? I mean, these were fairly cheap, but they are based on the mobile phone remakes of these games, and I do not really like how they look. They just look like online Flash games. I really would have preferred if they just stuck to the original 8-bit sprites from the NES, but whatever. They're still the game, so if you want to check out some Dragon Quest history, you have that option now. Now, on the same day as Link's Awakening, Ni no Kuni came out. Fucking stop! I've always thought Ni no Kuni was one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen, and it was always a shame it only released on the PS3 originally. But thankfully, it got a remastered version on PS4 and PC, with the original one coming to Nintendo Switch. Now, for anybody wondering why I may give Pokemon Sword and Shield a hard time in the graphical department, it's because of this. This game is nearing a decade old, yet it looks 10 times better than Pokemon. It has good voice acting, great animated cutscenes, amazing music, and overall, I just think Pokemon can be so much more than what it is right now. And Ni no Kuni is evidence of that. On the same day as Ni no Kuni and Link's Awakening,
There is no God.
Untitled Goose Game came out on the eShop, one of the major indie releases everybody was keeping their eyes on, and it's great. Sure, it's a funny haha game, but it's a really enjoyable puzzle game where you have this list of anarchy to complete, and you have to wander around the environment trying to figure out how to pull these things off. It's really well done, and while it's a short game, I think it's an experience that fits the length and deserves the attention it's gotten. And 4 days after that, Contra Rogue Core. I don't get this. So Konami revives the Contra series, and this is what they put out. A slow top-down game most similar to the dark ages of Contra. You know, games like Legacy of War on the PS1. Why didn't they just hire Inti Creates or WayForward to make a 2D sprite-based Contra? Like, that's what the series needs right now and would have done so much better than Rogue Core. This is just a really ugly, sloppy game that feels the need to swear every 2 minutes for no fucking reason. It's slow and a bit clunky. I don't think it's terrible, but it's definitely not great. For maybe like 10 bucks it's worth it, but I'd recommend checking out the demo and your priorities first. 3 days after Rogue Core and on the same day as the Dragon Quest Outbreak, Ori and the Blind Forest came out, and oh my god. Whenever I dream of making a video game, I always picture it being in the style of Ori and the Blind Forest. It's such a beautiful and emotional game. I'm not far in it at all, but so far, it's a wonderful adventure game. A Metroidvania that I will eventually beat / probably not, and it will haunt me for years to come. And Tetris 99 got a physical release. Why did I buy this? Because it's the best Switch game of 2019. I'm not joking. Tetris 99 is the Switch game I fire up the most, just for 1 or 2 quick games before bed. It is so much fun. And throughout the year, they've added a ton to it. New modes via DLC. Why did I buy this? Because it's Tetris 99. F you. These modes aren't anything special. They just kind of round it out to make it a full Tetris experience, like the ability to play just regular games offline. But what I love most is the addition of new themes. My favorite being the classic Game Boy one. I've gotten so used to how this theme looks and sounds, I can't go back. But there's loads of other Nintendo-based ones, or just generally cool ones to buy via in-game tickets you get for playing regularly. You get themes for participating in special events based on games coming out at the time. Guys, it's amazing. They finally did it. They perfected video games. And this stuff isn't even scratching the surface of the Switch of September. Spyro Reignited Trilogy, there was a bit confusion whether or not you'd be forced to download parts of the game or not with the physical release. That's unfortunate. But hey, at least the Switch games that require a portion downloaded now just have a tiny little notice on the box art instead of whatever the hell this was. Lego Jurassic World got a re-release. Weird, but I won't complain. Final Fantasy VIII Remastered came out. But we did have some stinkers. Devil May Cry 2 isn't the hottest crayon in the box. NBA 2K20 was a bit iffy alongside FIFA 20 Legacy Edition. The subtitle Legacy Edition denotes that this is literally just FIFA 19, but with the roster of players updated. EA couldn't even get 3 FIFAs in without giving up. But even with all of these game releases, Nintendo still held a Nintendo Direct on September 4th. And I've noticed that if you weren't over the moon positive about this Direct online, you got blasted, so what better time to say I thought this Direct was pretty mediocre than 6 months later? It wasn't bad or anything, there just wasn't really anything new. Like, it opened up with an Overwatch announcement, which would have been a lot more exciting in 2017, and it ended with the announcement of Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which is a good thing. I'm happy that's coming out. Xenoblade's obviously a good game, but it's only been on platforms that can barely run it, so it's nice to see it be able to run with some extra legroom now. But it's still an old game, and a game that's been re-released before, and it's a series that's already been represented on the Switch. Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore got announced, a port of the Wii U game. Surprising this made the jump before games like Mario 3D World or Pikmin 3, but still, I welcome games to get a second chance on Switch. I like having these ports, but it feels like that's all we're getting on Switch sometimes, you know? Deadly Premonition Origins was announced and released alongside the Direct, a port of Deadly Premonitions, which is one of the most polarizing games of all time. Either people absolutely despise it or love it unconditionally. And the sequel was announced to be a Nintendo Switch exclusive. Never would have guessed that. Super Kirby Clash released after the Direct, a free-to-play Kirby game. Team Kirby Clash was a mini-game in Planet Robobot on the 3DS. It became a free-to-play eShop title later on that system. And Super Kirby Clash is basically just that. It's pretty much Team Kirby Clash Deluxe from the 3DS ported to the Switch. God, would it have really been that difficult to create a new Kirby Clash game? Kind of my same thoughts with why they ported New Super Mario Bros. U. Like, would it have really been that much trouble to make a new Super Mario Bros.? Sometimes it feels like Nintendo doesn't even want to put effort into making new lazy games, so they just get lazy and re-release their old lazy games. The Super Kirby Clash is fine. I mean, it's free, might as well check it out, but it's nothing special at all. If you want a multiplayer Kirby game where all you kind of do is fight bosses, here you go. Banjo released for Smash after the Direct as well, alongside Terry from Fatal Fury and King of Fighters getting announced, which was leaked beforehand, or at the very least the next DLC character being an SNK rep was leaked beforehand. I'm fine with Terry being in here, but people need to calm the hell down. This character may not be the most widely known, but he does have historic value and a large fan base. And everybody shaming people for not knowing who Terry Bogard is or not caring about the character, please zip it. I never heard anybody even mention SNK characters in Smash Bros. Before the leak of an SNK character being in Smash Bros. Happened, and now people are acting like he's the most deserving character to be in Smash Bros. Ever. I don't dislike the character, it's just, man, you know who I hate the most when a new Smash Bros. Character is announced now? Everybody. SNES games were finally added to your Nintendo Switch Online subscription for no extra fee, as a few NES games were added every month prior to September, and with the handful of SNES games added, I think NSO finally has value. I don't think it's amazing or anything, but you do get access to quite a bit of content. Just on the SNES side alone, there's some real winners here. The NES games are far more hit or miss, but they've added some interesting and obscure ones. Plus, most of the best NES games are already here, so in my opinion, you get what you pay for. However, what I'm paying for is good online multiplayer. Nintendo doesn't give me that and instead gives me NES and SNES games instead. I mean, yeah, I'll take those, but are these supposed to distract me from the piss poor online? Oh, it's an SNES controller! This one oddly doesn't connect to the Switch like the NES controllers did last year. I'm both pleased but also slightly disappointed. That looked so stupid that I liked it. After the Direct happened, Nintendo posted a mysterious video showing people playing with a ring and leg strap. Later on, it turned out to be a fitness-based adventure game, Ring Fit Adventure, and also this month, Brain Age got announced. Hell yes, the casuals will have their day. September was absolutely packed, and Nintendo released a new system that I completely forgot about. The Nintendo Switch Lite finally released on September 20th, alongside Link's Awakening and Ni no Kuni, an Untitled Goose Game. It was $200 and is definitely worth it, but you might as well save up an extra $100 for the regular model. Here's the thing, I totally understand why this exists. Some people just want to buy a cheap Nintendo console they don't have to leave plugged into their TV just to play Pokemon or Mario or Zelda. I get it. And the Switch Lite is the perfect system for that. It's super light and compact, and you can play pretty much all Switch games you'd want to play on it. However, with some of them, you're gonna need extra controllers, as the non-detachable controllers on the system won't work for local multiplayer games focused on motion control. So stuff like Super Mario Party or 1-2 Switch, yeah, those work, but they're a bit clunky on the Lite. 1-2 Switch? A bit clunky? Yeah, fucking nuts. It's crazy to me that Nintendo didn't design the system to be more accepting of those types of games. There's no kickstand, which means you have to prop it up against something for these things. It also really bugs me Nintendo took out the ability to output to a TV. I wouldn't have minded if they sold a dock separately to connect to, but this thing just will not work like that. It is handheld only, and if you want that functionality, well, do I have a Switch for you? It's really unfortunate because this is a far better feeling system. The buttons feel amazing, soft and comfortable, yet insanely responsive. I hate the clicky buttons of the regular Joy-Con, and these are way more my speed. Having a traditional D-pad is really nice, and the smaller screen makes games look a bit sharper, and the smaller size kind of reignites that wow feeling of playing these big budget console games on the go. Let's be honest, it's been 3 years, I've officially gotten used to seeing home console games play on a portable. Now, the Switch Lite brings back some of that magic. Plus, I just think this is a nicer looking system overall. If this had the ability to play on the TV, this would be my go-to Switch. But the lack of that alongside some games that are annoying to play on here and no rumble make this system more of a novelty I wasted money on rather than a core system I'll play a lot, unfortunately. It has slightly better battery life than the original Switch, which made it seem like a cool extra system to pick up originally, but then Nintendo updated the regular Switch and it has supremely better battery life than the Lite, so I'm running out of pros for this machine. I know some people like using this as their handheld Switch. They just leave the regular one in the dock, and whenever they want to play their games, they transfer their save data over to the Lite and then transfer it back when they want to play on the TV. See, I don't do that because a more elegant solution, in my opinion, is to just take the Switch out of the dock. October was definitely a bit lighter than September, but still had quite a bit of content, and the headliner this month was none other than Luigi's Mansion 3 releasing on Halloween, October 31st. I love that release date, but I hate it too. Yeah, it's perfect this game ended up releasing on Halloween, but you only had one day to play until Halloween season was over. I wish it came out a week prior, but I feel like they must have been working on this game up till the last minute. They kept saying Luigi's Mansion 3 is planned to release this fall and it'll release when it's ready. They didn't specify October for the longest time. I feel like if it could have, they would have released it a week earlier potentially, but hey, the game came out on time and it's really quite good. I actually fully beat the original Luigi's Mansion for the first time around 3's release, and comparing and contrasting these two is really interesting. I feel like 1 is thematically better, like you remember every single room in this mansion, where everything is, the atmosphere, the little details. But the gameplay is pretty unremarkable. Just go room to room sucking up ghosts. Luigi's Mansion 3's style isn't nearly as great in my opinion. The art style is a bit too cartoony, which I know is a weird complaint, but Luigi's Mansion 1 had this faint sense of dread to it. Like, this felt like an actual haunted house. While it was still cartoony, it still felt legitimately haunted. I don't really care for the exaggerated and pointy look to a lot of 3's environments or characters. The Dark Moon had this art style too, and it was a bit weird to me that they didn't redesign the Mario cast to slightly fit better in this style. All the other characters in the game look like they belong, and 1 felt like it fully took place in the standard Mario universe. The hotel having different random themes on each floor makes things more varied, but makes it feel like less of an actual building like the original, and more like each floor is just another world in a regular Mario game or something. It's not bad, but I do like how the original setting felt more connected, like this was an actual mansion. However, the gameplay here feels to me like they really validated Luigi's Mansion being its own series. With how 3 is designed and how you use Luigi's poltergeist to interact with the environment and solve puzzles, there's really nothing else like this series. Focusing more so on clever puzzle solving really worked out in its favor. I haven't played much of Dark Moon, and while a lot of 3's elements started there, everything feels perfected in 3. It is visually gorgeous and a ton of fun to play. Like I said, I do like 1's style and atmosphere more, but 3 is definitely the better overall package. But that wasn't it for October, as Ring Fit Adventure came out earlier in the month, coming bundled with some new accessories for the Switch, the Ring Con and Joy-Con leg strap. Just connect one Joy-Con to this and slide one Joy-Con into that, and we have no more excuses. If Nintendo tells us to exercise, we better do it. Ring Fit Adventure is a fitness-based adventure RPG. You run through a level by running in place and use the Ring Con by moving it around, squeezing it, and pulling it out to perform actions. When you run into an enemy, you have to do various exercises to fight off against them. This game is no joke and is a legitimate exercise. I love how it incentivizes you to play more by contextualizing exercise as a grand quest. Listen, I dig me some Wii Fit, but what I kept coming back to were the balance games, and those were just kinda quick, fun uses of the Wii balance board. They weren't really great workouts. Ring Fit does a better job incentivizing you to keep playing by taking some of the fun in the non-exercise games in Wii Fit and turning them into actual exercises. It gives you more of a reason to legitimately exercise because everybody knows the worst part of Wii Fit was the actual exercising. Who wants to do yoga when you can ski? The problem with Ring Fit is it's still exercise, so if you stop playing for a bit, it is really hard to feel motivated to play again. But I really liked what I played, and I hope to consistently get back into it soon. Now, Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz HD came out this month, and my god, it's Banana Blitz. Like I said, this was always a weird one to remake, as it's far from the best entry in the series. It's fine, but this was where the series started to stumble. We took out the motion controls, and now it's just controlled by the analog stick, which is a blessing and a curse. I do prefer Monkey Ball being controlled this way, but Banana Blitz was designed with motion controls in mind, and thus the stages are pretty simplistic. That makes the game way easier and a bit more boring. I assume they picked this game to be remade because it didn't need a ton of work done to it to look good nowadays. The art style still looks really good today. On the other hand, the GameCube games, while they don't look bad, do use those classic early 2000s character models and would probably need a bit more done to them for a re-release. Also, I hate how Sega's basically saying, if you want more Monkey Ball, buy Banana Blitz HD. These companies have to stop putting out games we don't want to then say, buy this to get what you actually want. It's such a bad practice. Like, don't be surprised if your game doesn't sell well. It's not because people don't want a new entry, it's because you re-released an entry not many wanted. However, I think Banana Blitz HD is a fine enough Monkey Ball game. It does scratch the itch I had for one. It's just unfortunate because I know they could have remade one or two instead. Speaking of remakes and re-releases, Disney classic games Aladdin and Lion King was a cool one, a compilation of many of the different versions of these games. There's a lot of neat features they included, and I like that licensed retro titles are able to be re-released like this. Resident Evil 5 and 6, alright, well these are once again overpriced at $30 each, but Capcom at least made things better by adding motion controls. Still not to Resident Evil 4, what is wrong with this company? The motion controls actually work really well, they're capable of doing it, but why would they add it to these and not 4? 5 is pretty good, albeit not as good as 4, and 6 took the series into a brave new direction called Bad Resident Evil Game. But if you want a quality action game and not a quality Resident Evil game, 6 isn't half bad if you grab it on sale. Overwatch released, but it was during the Great Blizzard controversy of 2019, and it barely got any coverage and I didn't feel like buying it. See, you should have released it back in 2017 when people were actually asking for this game to be on Switch. The Witcher 3 came out all on one game card, which is insane. Many of these bigger ports to Switch require extra downloads or are digital only, but they cram the entirety of this game on a single cartridge, and playing this game on a TV, oh my god. It's a blurry nightmare. Textures constantly pop in, it's more than playable, but not a great looker. Playing in handheld, you can truly appreciate how insanely cool it is they were able to make this game work on the platform. This is The Witcher 3 in its entirety on the go. That is unbelievable. And Time came over, which is weird because it was never supposed to. But this is such an enjoyable little 3D platformer. It's a shame the Switch version doesn't run better though. These cute little title cards that appear before each act are so pixelated for some reason, and the game itself runs alright, but has fairly long load times and looks really blurry. Again, it works. It's just unfortunate this version isn't the best I think it could be. Little Town Hero actually released, developed by the Pokemon developer Game Freak, originally just titled Town when it was revealed back in September of 2018. I was always a bit interested in this game, just because I thought the style looked really nice. Looking forward to Little Town Hero HD, Yooka-Laylee in the Impossible Lair. I wasn't super into the original Yooka-Laylee, it felt like the scope was too big for their team and budget. Impossible Lair changes things up and is a straight up 2D platformer in the vein of Donkey Kong Country. This game is so damn similar to Tropical Freeze, but that is not a bad thing. Tropical Freeze gets better every time you play it. When I first initially played it back in 2014, I thought it was good. Now, after recently replaying it for the third time, I'd consider it to be one of the greatest 2D platformers of all time. This game is another really good one. I wouldn't say it tops Tropical Freeze, but if you like that game, for the love of God, give this one a shot. Ghostbusters, the video game remastered and Killer Queen Black came out, and while I did pick them up and intend on giving them a go, I unfortunately haven't yet. October was a pretty packed month with releases, but not much happened news-wise. Mario Maker 2 finally gave you the ability to play with friends online over 3 months after it released. Give me a P, give me an aesthetic, that was pathetic. But at least online multiplayer with friends works fairly well, it just took a ridiculous amount of time to happen. And to round things out, Doom Eternal got delayed to March 20th, with the Switch version being delayed even further to an unspecified date. You know, that's fine, but they were planning to release Doom 64 alongside Doom Eternal in November and push that to March as well. Come on, why? I get it's a pre-order bonus, but it can stay that way. You just get it for free when you get Eternal. Why couldn't you just release that in November? What else am I supposed to play in November, son of a bitch? What do you want me to say? I gave Pokemon Shield a try and it just did nothing for me. I assume that it's because I never grew up with Pokemon, and when you don't have a childhood connection to Pokemon, it is a lot harder to start getting into it in your early 20s. Just nothing was doing it for me. The story was completely nothing. The battles weren't interesting to me. I was just incredibly bored. But people like this game, so I'm not going to say it's bad or anything. I'll just stamp this one with not for me. It's a good thing I bought both versions. When Pokemon bores me to tears, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 comes around to save the day. It's just alright. Mario and Sonic titles boiled down to just being simple sports minigame collections with some zany flair thrown into a couple of them, and this one is no exception. This is definitely better than the series offerings on Wii U, but that's not saying much. My problems with the sports minigames is that they're longer than something like a Mario Party minigame, but they're not long enough to have a whole lot of substance to them, so at the end of the day, I'm usually left a bit unsatisfied with these games. But I mean, what's here is quality enough. They have these retro minigames which are cute, but to me feel like a way to pad out the game with simpler, cost-effective content. I mean, instead of more dream events where they do crazy Mario and Sonic themed stuff, they focus more so on the retro events. But overall, if this kind of game sounds like it appeals to you, it probably does. Layton's Mystery Journey, an enhanced version of the 3DS title released. I really need to pick this up. I love me a good Professor Layton game, and this seems to be exactly that. New Super Lucky's Tale was a quality 3D platformer. It originally released on the Xbox One as an exclusive, but now we have this version on Switch. I personally have no clue exactly how much newer it is. I know they changed up quite a bit, but this is still a pretty solid time. Nothing mind-blowing, but worth it if this genre's your thing. Smash Bros. Ultimate was updated, formally releasing Terry to the World. A Nintendo surprise released an eShop multiplayer game, The Stretchers, and I'd be lying if I said I knew anything about this game. And Overwatch 2 was announced, and I'd be lying if I said I knew anything about this game. November was surprisingly light, but hey, Black Friday happened, so good for consumerism. I picked up quite a few titles I just didn't get around to buying earlier in the year, and Nintendo was offering a Switch bundled with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as their big deal this year. It was still $300, and it also wasn't the new Switch with the better battery life, it was the old Switch. Who bought this? Oddly enough, at this point, I'm pretty happy that barely much happened after November. Remember that time when I wouldn't shut up about September 2019 for the Switch? Yeah, that was hell. Here's Assassin's Creed Rebel Collection. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag actually released on Switch, which was nice, and it ran a whole hell of a lot better than 3 ever did. It came with Assassin's Creed Rogue, thus they had to give it a stupid dumb collection name instead of just calling it Assassin's Creed 4. Come on, these look stupid next to each other now. Sadly, Rogue wasn't on the game card, which is pretty lame. You had to download it. And equally as lame, Call of Juarez Gunslinger released but digital only. They were confident enough to release it at retail, but with just a download code inside. I really want to know if anybody actually buys these download code only cases. Like, what's the point? Brain Age Nintendo Switch training launched in Japan this month, with Europe getting it on January 3rd. And yup, it was Brain Age. But many reviewers noted how it felt a little unevolved from the DS iterations, and because of that, it felt a little out of place on the system. Like, just the fact that it came with a bonus stylus to use, it just makes the game on Switch not feel as organic as it did on DS or 3DS. This is a series they should have released on smartphones. It feels a little out of place here, but for what it is, it's pretty good. No North American release so far, sadly, which blows. I want to play this, but I just might have to import it. Mario Maker 2 actually got an update with new items and a power-up that turns you into Link with his own full moveset. Listen, really cool, but they put this out way too late. Like, come on, nearly half a year after the game came out, we got our first substantial content update. The original Mario Maker got stuff out way quicker than that, and by this time, many have moved on from Mario Maker 2. Well, at least there was another Indie World presentation, nothing massive revealed except for Axiom Verge 2 and the sequel to Golf Story. Also, the Game Awards happened. After following up last year's reveals of Joker and Smash and Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, Nintendo revealed Square Enix's Bravely Default 2, and that's it. Thank God December was light, and thank God the next few months have been some of the driest in Nintendo Switch history. Remember the Switch? Well, Nintendo barely did for the first few months of 2020. Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore released. I'm happy that happened. The game is good and deserved more of a chance than what it got on Wii U. It just doesn't appeal to me, so I skipped out on this one. I bought it on Wii U, damn it, I did my part. Other than that, nothing much of note to me released, but we did get some updates. The 5th and final DLC character in the Smash Bros. Ultimate Fighters Pass was revealed. In a lineup of third-party characters, most of which nobody would have ever expected to be in Smash Bros., the final character in this pack was some sap from Fire Emblem. The playable character from Fire Emblem Three Houses, Byleth, was the character, revealed via a live stream hosted by Sakurai, so I actually had a thought cross my mind right before the stream happened. I mean, everybody was going crazy speculating, but I thought, while I was pretty sure it would be another third-party character, this was a live stream dedicated to a specific Smash Bros. Announcement. And what characters get announced a lot during Smash Bros. Dedicated live streams? Fire Emblem characters! I mean, I don't care. There are characters I want in the game, but the roster is so huge at this point, they can add whoever they want in my opinion. Also, side note, this is just a random thought I've had lately. As much as new characters getting announced for Smash Bros. Is such a big event in gaming that I love, I almost would prefer if they focused on adding stuff via DLC that Ultimate's lacking in, like more single player modes. Mainly because the one thing the game is for sure not lacking in is the character roster. Anyways, yeah, sure, go ahead, add this character, but I sure do not care. I mean, the fact that this is the 8th Fire Emblem character is one thing, but they couldn't have picked a more uniquely designed Three Houses character. Byleth just looks like a slightly tweaked Marth and Lucina to me. Now, the character itself plays differently enough. I don't personally like playing as them, but I can at least appreciate how different they play compared to the rest of the Fire Emblem cast. But still, this wasn't my first pick for a Smash Bros. Character. This wasn't my pick in general, but oh well. Many people were pretty upset. You have the people who whined nonstop about it, and then the people who were annoyingly rubbing it in others' faces that they wanted Byleth. Both needed to calm down. But of course, with me being critical, I will definitely be associated with the whiners, so might as well let this one out. I keep seeing people say how Three Houses is huge now, so Nintendo's capitalizing on its success with a Three Houses character in Smash Bros. Listen, over 2 million copies, that ain't small. That's great to see for a series like this. But I wouldn't consider that huge. Like, Splatoon 2 is the second entry in a 5-year-old franchise, and it sold nearly 10 million copies. Why haven't we gotten another Splatoon character as DLC? Kirby Star Allies sold over 2 million copies, god. I don't know, I don't mind this character, but they definitely did not excite me at all, and a lot of the reasonings people gave for why they were included, A Pokemon Direct was held, announcing a remake of the first Mystery Dungeon game, with a demo releasing right then and there. After that Byleth talk, I am scared shitless to say my opinion on this. I didn't like it, but the art style was cute. For the love of God, move on. Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC was announced. I mean, it looks decent enough. It's effectively replacing that third version we'd get with titles, which I think is a good step in the right direction. It's just a little iffy considering one of the complaints many had with Sword and Shield was a lack of content, and to see this getting announced so quickly after release, I don't know, man. Thank God we're here! And thank God Nintendo forgot February existed, so not much happened this month either. We got some game releases like Mega Man Zero ZX Legacy Collection, Devil May Cry 3, which actually had some additions to it unlike the first two games, but I bought Sega Ages Sonic 2. I could already play Sonic 2 via the Sega Genesis Classics Collection for Switch, but I'm an idiot. You saw I spent a good chunk of my life whining about DLC for Smash Brothers. I had to pick this one up. This is actually a pretty solid version of Sonic 2. It has Knuckles playable and the emulation is great, but my God, Sega, why don't you just release the mobile phone version on consoles? It's the best version. Also, why doesn't Sega re-release more stuff in general on Switch? Like, they are, but it's the non-essentials. Like, they ported Sonic and Sonic 2 when the Switch already had these games in this giant collection. We got Sega Ages Puyo Puyo 2 when there's already an abundance of Puyo Puyo on the system. Start releasing Sega Saturn or Dreamcast games, or even Xbox 360 stuff. I would kill for Sonic Generations. Speaking of re-releases, Platinum Games launched a Kickstarter to bring Wonderful 101 to Switch, PC, and PS4. I liked Wonderful 101 on Wii U. It definitely deserves a second chance, but this entire Kickstarter kind of gave me weird vibes. Nintendo offered to publish Wonderful 101 themselves, but wouldn't allow Platinum to release it on PC or PS4. Which makes sense. But no, they went to Kickstarter when they didn't need to, and Nintendo was willing to fund the port. And all of these ports seem to be pretty much done considering they're releasing in May 2020. To me, this Kickstarter seemed completely unnecessary. But hey, I guess it's pretty much a form of pre-ordering, and it got them some pretty decent publicity, so whatever. Finally, Nintendo held an Animal Crossing Direct covering New Horizons, and yep, it looks really good. But other than that, there wasn't much happening in the first few months of the year. Normally this wouldn't be much of a problem, but nothing much at all happened in the gaming industry as a whole, and Nintendo's 2020 lineup is completely up in the air right now. Other than Animal Crossing, Mystery Dungeon, Xenoblade, and Bravely Default, what's there to look forward to? So that was the Switch's third year on the market. I really enjoyed taking a look back at the year because it reminded me that Yoshi's Crafted World came out. Overall, it was pretty good. Definitely a lot more original first-party titles than in 2018. That year was a little too port-heavy for my tastes, although I would like to see more original titles overall on the system. When one of the most noteworthy titles in February is a PS2 game from 2005, I don't know. That's not to say Devil May Cry 3 isn't a good game, but it's an old game. It's just not exciting to me. I love that the Switch gets these legacy titles, but it feels like that's all it gets most of the time. Now, while 2018 was definitely worse off for titles, I still felt more of a passion for their releases. I had a lot to say about Tropical Freeze or Captain Toad on Switch, and while 2019 was undoubtedly better, I didn't feel that as much. And if I had to guess why, it's probably because we are legitimately very far into the system's life. I'm just not as excited about the system anymore. It's not that I don't like the system, far from it. It's just that it's not the shiny new gadget it used to be. And most of my problems with the Switch have been constant throughout its life. My biggest problem is that it has barely addressed any of my problems throughout the years. The operating system has barely changed, I'm not getting as many original experiences as I would want to from Nintendo, and Mario and Sonic 2020 has one of the worst box arts I've ever seen in my life. It looks unfinished. I have no idea what to expect for 2020, considering the fact that we are 3 months in and barely know anything about Nintendo's plans or lineup. I already know that I'm going to get a lot of people saying that I'm being too negative, and, well, I did whine a lot. I like the Switch, I'm just more prone to point out the things that bugged me about it. I'm also not really one to freak out and adore every single thing Nintendo does, but I'm willing to give it a try. What the f***, Box Boy? What the f***, the stretchers? What the f***, the Switch still exists?